Paul says that the spirit of adoption causes us to cry out, Abba. What did Jesus cry out when he was on the cross? How did he do that? The Spirit. So Paul says his apostleship was given to persuade people of God's righteousness towards them, to persuade people that God is faithful towards us. Paul's apostleship was to persuade us that while we are unfaithful, while we are dead in sin, while we were sinners, ungodly, God remained faithful towards us. God was still filled with goodness in his heart towards us. And Paul said he was given the faith or his apostleship to preach that. So as people were walking around observing death in the world, they would find something in their heart where they cried out, Abba, into your hands I commit my life. And it isn't just an eternal thing. You desire peace? Father, your Father, into your hands I commit my desire for peace. You need joy? You don't make a choice to have joy. You tell God that it's by his power you're going to have joy, and you commit your desire for joy into the hands of God. You commit your desire for love into the hands of God. You commit your desire to be persuaded you're acceptable into the hands of God. That's what it means that you look to God to be the Father of your life. The peace you want comes from him. It doesn't come from your choice. So Paul says, I preach this faith to you guys. I put the work of God clearly on display, and that made you still. Fear and trembling is to be made still. And that was your obedience. And as you were obedient then, even so are you obedient now. He says, in the same way you were persuaded by the faith of Jesus Christ, that you can't gather life to yourself. Do you know how you were persuaded that we can't gather life to ourselves? Where do you see Jesus' hands on the cross? Nailed. What could he do with his own hands? Nothing. And what did he inherit? Everything. What is he trying to teach us? How did he inherit everything? You know how he inherited everything? By the righteousness of the Father towards him to gift it to him. And the obedience of Jesus, if you want to know what Jesus' obedience was, is he didn't lift one finger to try and save his own life. He didn't lift one finger to try to clothe himself. But when he needed to be clothed, when they stripped him naked, and he needed to be clothed in the glory of God's life, when he needed to be clothed in glory, when he needed life, he looked to the Father and not to his own hands. That's right. That's right. Amen. So Paul says, in the same way you were persuaded by the faith that was revealed in Jesus when he was on the cross, that you can't gather life to yourself through your own works. That God is with you to be good to you, to justify you from the accusation of the evil one by gifting you with his life. You don't need to be justified to God, you're justified by God. Amen. We preach the gospel backwards, as if God was the accuser and now we got to be justified to him. But the serpent was always the one accusing. And God come to stand next to us as our advocate to justify us from the accusation of the evil one. And what was the accusation? Where's your God now? You're an orphan. And then there's God. Boom, here I am. We see that in the woman caught in the act of adultery. Who was accusing the woman? Jesus or the Pharisees? Which one was of their father, the devil? Jesus or the Pharisees? Okay, so it was the devil that was accusing the woman, not Jesus. Guess what the Gospel of John begins with? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So there's Jesus, he's God. There's the sinner thrown down at his feet. Who accused the sinner? God or the devil? What did God do with the sinner? Justified her, removed the accusation, cleansed the temple, removed the sentence of death that was hanging over her. And then when he says, go and sin no more, he's not talking about go and no longer commit any works of the flesh. If you keep reading in the Gospel of John, Jesus calls sin unbelief in God's goodness towards you. So go and no longer believe that you're alone. Go and no longer believe that the Father isn't with you to care for your life. Go and no longer live as an orphan in this world, thinking you have to care for your own life.